But the truth is, we need to slow down to really find who we are. And the reason I'm saying it's like that is because our brains or our mind, which is separate to our body, comprehends so quickly, but we need to actually go to a place where it's not doing that. And the only time sometimes we can do that is without stimulus, without being stimulated by all of the things that are external and so on. So in a work environment as a lawyer, man, they are stimulated like crazy. There's so much going on.
Welcome to the Tomorrow Is Not Today podcast. You've already started to create the life you want just by being here. Designed for you as a business professional so you can be physically, mentally and emotionally healthy, more productive, less stressed and living a life you truly love. My name's Kingsley and thank you for coming on another journey with one of our uniquely qualified professionals.
Nate Cartledge, thank you so much for joining us today on the Tomorrow Is Not Today podcast.
My pleasure, mate. It's so good to be here and I love what you are doing.
Thank you so much. Now, as usual, we're going to get straight into one of the big questions to start off with because as we just heard in your promo, your bio, I guess, is you found your purpose. So I know a lot of people are still looking for that. What is purpose and why do you think you've actually found yours?
Really good question, especially to start off with. So, and you'd think that I would be an expert because I say that I found my purpose and I'd be able to come up with the answer on hack like that. But I want to do this justice for people to really understand purpose. So there's two sides to purpose. There's one, what we call purpose, and the other one's a mission. And they need to combine together. So I believe that our purpose is us. That's what I believe. And so rather than like people say this, and for a long time I did too, I'm looking for my purpose. I'm actually looking for my purpose. I need to find my purpose. I don't really know what my purpose is. And we all understand Simon Sinek's whole why theory. When you know your why, your how, and your what will work itself out. And your why is really your purpose. And you can do all sorts of different tests online like the Ikigai and all sorts of stuff to find your purpose. However, I really intrinsically believe that we are designed with everything within us. We're created with everything within us to do all that we were purposed to do by our Creator. So with that in mind, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I started. Look, I've always been a curious human about personal development and why do I react this way and why do I respond that way. However, due to my upbringing, there was still a lot of victimhood. And once I unwound that and I took responsibility for it, I then started this journey of purpose and really finding my purpose. And it wasn't something that I had to go on a journey to. It was something that I had to go inside to find. And it was just unpacking the layers of the disbeliefs, the stories that I'd written about myself, the failings, and all the stuff that I'd actually written and not taken responsibility for in my life that I had to unpack to find out who Nathan really was. And the deal is that when I found my purpose, I found Nathan. I found this guy that I actually really loved. This guy who was broken, who's been through his journey. But he was a good guy who loves people, loves God, loves his friends, and wants success. But what is success? And understands what that is now. And success is people. And so my purpose was really me. My purpose was to allow me to shine my light brighter than I'd ever shone. And on top of that I then add mission, because if purpose is me, then it can all become about me, which is quite narcissistic. But our purpose is us, so we can then externalize, and that's our mission. My purpose was to uncover the real Nathe, the Nathe that's a really good guy who loves life, loves energy, is adventurous, loves people, and then externalize that into mission, which is about others. So I hope that's answered a lot of people. I know that I haven't said, oh, my purpose is a bricklayer or my purpose is a swinging from buildings or my purpose is a business person. It's not. My purpose is me. My purpose is to shine my light bright.
Yeah. And which is awesome because it's definitely a different take to what we generally hear on it.
Yeah.
But I think it's a more realistic, more true take on it. But I want to dig deep into some of the things you said there. You said you had to go inside and unpack some of the layers. On a practical level, because listening to us, we got a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business people, a lot of people trying to find their way in life and who they are at the moment. And whether we're successful in the typical success scenario or whether we are just trying to get by in life or wherever we feel that we are ourselves, we all have this desire to be who should be and to live a purpose. So how do you actually go in and unpack that on a practical level that someone can go, I can do that today?
I do have a formula for this. I love this quote that I started to live by a fair while ago. Actually, like read books, listen to podcasts, add information. Look, it's all knowledge until it's applied, but you'll be able to chew on the fish and spit out the bones. It's a bit of a formula. But I heard this quote from Joseph Campbell, and it's based on Star Wars, Yoda teaching young Luke. And he said, the freedom you most seek is in the darkest part of the cave you most fear to go. And so that's one thing that I've actually gone, right, well, I actually have to go inside to find those things that I'm still hanging on to, and then not meander in that cave, not stay there and dwell in my BS, but to get out and start exposing. So that's one little theory. However, Kingsley, it's more like this. What's easier, change your thoughts or change your habits? It's probably easier to try and change your thought patterns for a moment, but you'll find that if you don't change your habits, your thoughts will come back to the same as they were. I've found personally that changing my habits and building a stack of rhythmic habits in my life on a daily process has changed my thoughts, has changed the way I think about myself, has changed everything that I do. And so is it easy to change your thoughts or your habits? And that's the answer really to going, what's the inner work? What's the deep work I need to do? Well, for a lot of people, they'll go and sit on a mountain in Nepal somewhere and all that stuff. And great. People go on spiritual journeys to find their purpose and who they are. Fantastic. However, there is a practical way of doing this that I believe a lot of people miss. And it's like I said, we can try and change our thoughts about ourselves. We can, I hear a lot of people say, fake it till you make it, burn on the toxic positivity by telling yourself that you're handsome in the mirror when really in the back of your mind, you think you're not, and you've got to change that. So you keep telling yourself that until it changes. Well, I don't know if I'm totally in alignment with believing that. However, the habits have worked for me. And that's what it is. It's just going, right, stacking some habits, stacking some daily healthy habits and doing it holistically, like body, mind, soul, spirit. So like in the morning, like I've purpose the way I wake up. I purpose the way I go to sleep. I purpose the way I wake up. I do the things in the morning that are for me first so I can then be the best version. And that has really shown me, the ice bath theory that I use, how I get in an ice bath every day. It's down around between 7 and 5 degrees, and I do it every day for 6 minutes. And I know there's health benefits to it, and you'd probably have some of the science knowing you about the health benefits to it. But for a long time before I understood the science, it was more about take that flesh. It was more about, well, I'm sitting here for the extra few minutes that I'm supposed to, purely to tell myself that if I can do this, I can do anything today. And that has completely changed my thoughts. So the habit stack, and I don't even like calling it the habit stack or the routine anymore because they're harsh words. I call it a rhythm. And I'll try and live within the flow of my rhythm. But they're all healthy, and I'm changing that as 1% every day. So I'm looking at the long game. And that's happened over the last couple of years. It's like, okay, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I was. So I'm present and I'm happy with where I'm at today.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I remember someone described it as a dissatisfied satisfaction.
Yeah, that's a
which I
great way
thought
of
was a
looking at
brilliant
it.
description. So,
Yeah,
okay, I'm gonna really drill down on this. Um,
I'm
let's say
nervous.
we've got a lawyer, who I know a ton of lawyers around here,
Yep.
and in the law world, a lot of them love what they do. Some of them enjoy it. It's a job. It pays the bills. It does well for them. But they're not totally fulfilled. They're not totally satisfied. They enjoy what they do. They do a good job of it, earn a good income. They provide for their families. Things are going well. But there's this something inside that's not fulfilled where they may not feel like they're living their purpose. And I know there's a bunch of people like that in different occupations. What can they do to get to that? Is it going into that dark place and that cave that they need to go to? Is it trying to analyze, am I missing out on doing something? And there could be a lot of answers to this, but you brought up purpose. So I'm going to hit on that. Is that to do with purpose, or is that something totally different?
Yeah, I believe that it is to do with. Oh, look, I believe the whole lot's to do with purpose. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a fireman, you're a police officer, you're a real estate agent, you're a painter, you're an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter. And people try to delineate their role from themselves. You can't. You are the one person, and you should be that person in all aspects of your life. So, to answer really short, like, yeah, it's purpose. And I believe in the law world, especially that it's so on all the time, like they're on all the time, so they've got to get stuff done. Billable hours is huge, so the more they work, the more they make. And to be the best, we've all watched Suits. We all want to be Harvey Specter, So, but you can add that to any sort of profession. There's always people to look up to. They work so hard and long, and they finish the day with a few whiskeys and they sleep for 3 hours. However, there's a really really wise man, one of the wealthiest men in the world, unknown. And I remember listening to this story about him, and he says that he would spend 4 hours a day meditating and praying and not doing anything externally to do 1 hour's worth of work. And in that 1 hour, he was way more effective than he would have been for 8 hours in a day just working. So for me, that's called the daily rest. That's called the rest. Like, we are programmed to rest, because in our resting, like, if you put it this way, if I can say it like this, Kingsley, if we understand our comprehension, the way we comprehend, our brain is wired naturally to comprehend at around 550 words a minute. That's a natural comprehension. Average reading speed is 263 words a minute, right? That's the average reading speed. Now, mine's way lower than that. So I feel like, I've got ADHD because I can't comprehend at the same rate I read. And so my brain's off to the left thinking about something while I'm reading this, and I have to go back and read it again. And you feel like you probably don't have ADHD or ADD, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, so without actually increasing the speed of our reading to be able to read at the same speed we can comprehend, or slowing down our comprehension to the same pace that we're reading, then we're always having to catch up. And so if I add that back to what we're saying about lawyers or other professions, their minds are always on so much that they're always trying to catch up. They're always trying to comprehend. But the truth is, we need to slow down to really find who we are. We need to actually slow down. And again, some people need a spiritual journey. I love the walkabout theory, going out bush and just walking about in nature, getting our feet into the earth, getting the sunlight on us, getting these things on us that are natural in nature to actually show us who we really are. Like, we have to, and the reason I'm saying it's like that is because our brains, or our mind, which is separate to our body, comprehends so quickly, but we need to actually go to a place where it's not doing that. And the only time sometimes we can do that is without stimulus, without being stimulated by all of the things that are external and so on. So in a work environment, as a lawyer, man, they are stimulated like crazy. There's so much going on. How could they ever truly find themselves when they're doing that? So I hope that answers. I know it's a little bit complex, but if we can understand that theory about comprehension and reading, it shows us how our mind works. We just need to step back, slow down, go to nature, put our feet in the dirt, go fishing, go surfing, get in the ocean, do those things to slow down those thoughts and finally start talking to our heart rather than our head.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone who goes camping, and we're not talking about, glamping, we're talking about camping here, the real stuff, when you do get back into nature, even if it's for a couple of days, where the phone's either off or it's just there, but it hardly gets touched, and you're away from everything, but you're in nature. Your feet are on the ground, you're going for a swim in the ocean, you're out in the sun, you're up early in the morning. There's no pressure to have to perform. You're just there and doing it. The difference that you feel completely in every part of your being is incredible. And I think that's sort of what you're talking about getting back to that whole slowing down, the slowing down to speed up type of thing. Because without that slowing down, even though we're pushing our foot down on the accelerator more and more, we're not going any faster. We're losing a lot of energy and a lot of steam, but we're not going any faster.
We're just spinning our wheels, really, aren't we, Kingsley?
Yeah.
We're just spinning our wheels, and that, I believe, is a journey of purpose. That's the journey of finding out who we really are, without all the stimulus, without all the effort, without all the stuff. We need to actually come back. I said it a second ago, and so I really want to echo this loudly. If you can hear what your heart's saying, you'll be able to find out what your purpose is. The
That's
problem is
brilliant.
we listen too much to what our head's saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Say that
And
again. That's awesome.
if you can listen to what your heart is saying, you'll know what your purpose is. But it's too hard with all the stimulus around. We listen too much to our heads, and our heads are on the phone, like another call, or I've got 700 likes for that reel, or I've got this going on, or I've got that going on. This stimulus. Look, I've got to answer this email. Like, honestly, it's breathing. It's getting back to earth to listen to your heart. What's your heart saying? What does your heart say about yourself? And now science is saying, well, our heart is really our first brain because it has intuition attached to it, memory attached to it, and it's actually quite mind blowing, that
Really
theory.
is. When you look
It
at all
really
the
is.
science and research, it is totally mind-blowing and totally throws out the door everything that we've thought. It's really interesting.
That we're controlled by our mind. No, our purpose is not in our mind. Our purpose is in our heart.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. It's really interesting you saying that, because I remember when probably about halfway through my really intense scientific journey of learning all of these sorts of things, I remember I'm like, okay, what can I boil all of this down to? Everything that I've learned, everything that I've put in practice that has actually had the right effect for me. And I thought the biggest thing that I can get out of this is get back to nature. Out of everything is get back. Now, I'm not a hippie. I'm nothing like that. But get back to nature. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. And the more that I research, the more that I've practiced, developed, implemented habits and things like that in my life, that whole thing of what you're talking about is so, so true. And if there's one bottom line over everything that I would say is get back to nature above everything else. It's so
I
true.
can't disagree with that, mate. Yeah.
Nathe, now I want to change tact a little bit here, because one of the things that came up in your bio as well is, I just want to get it here. You rediscovered a lost identity. So to me,
Okay.
at the moment, my personal belief that a lot of the issues that we're dealing with in the world at the moment are and I don't want to go down this track too far, I want to stick where you are, but I believe that a lot of the issues we're dealing with, particularly in the Western culture, is a fact of lost identity. We don't know who we are. So now, obviously, you mentioned earlier that you'd been through a journey in life. Take us back a little bit. Open up. Tell us a little bit about who you are. Now, in all transparency here, we re-met, I'll say, probably about 8-10 months ago, roughly. Something like that. Give
Probably,
or
yeah,
take.
maybe 10, 12, yeah,
Something like
thereabouts.
that, by a mutual friend, Mark Pope, who's a great
Yeah,
guy, does a
yeah.
lot of leadership stuff, very, very good. And interestingly, is once he introduced us, because it's funny, just a little by story there is, he said to me, he said, "Oh, mate, I think you're a coach and Nate's a coach. You guys should probably hook up. I think you get on really well together." And as we did, and I'm starting to look, who is he? Ends up going through, we've got all these mutual friends, a lot of the same friend type people, and ends up, we're actually second cousins, which is really weird. And
Or
I think years,
weird but fantastic.
yeah, I think years and years ago, when I was probably about 5 or 6 or 7 around there, we actually come up due to home stuff and stayed with some cousins of ours that are actually first cousins and that sort of thing. And I think we may have met a couple of times then, but just totally disappeared. So it was really cool when that actually happened. But tell us a little bit about your journey and who you are, the journey you went on, how obviously to rediscover your identity, you lost it somewhere. How did you lose it? What was the journey you went on then to actually come back and rediscover your identity?
Okay. Okay. I will. I will go all the way there. There's lots of things that we understand that toxic shame actually whittles away your self-worth. Shame, guilt, shame, and toxic shame will completely eliminate your identity. There's more to it than that, though, because people might say, well, I don't feel toxic shame, but I don't know who I really am. So scientifically, let's just have this aspect around this first and understand this first before we get right into my journey. Is every child is born, there's two things that happen. When you're born, you've got 400 different psychological traits. 400 different psychological traits. It's like personality temperaments. And so we see a kid and he's throwing a tantrum or he's chucking a wobbly, and our thing is to control him. We put them in a controlled environment so they don't do that anymore because it's embarrassing, but they don't know how to react to their emotion that's going on, or they don't even know how to communicate properly because they still can't speak and say exactly what they're feeling or what they want, and they don't know how to. So what we do is we create the control environment to tell them how to do it by, different things. That's society. And the perfect example of this is there's trees down on the surf coast of Australia, which is down in Torquay, and their trunks are straight, but their branches and their leaves touch the ground. And that's because of the wind. That's because of the environment. And so they're born to shine. They're born to have their leaves go straight to the sun. That's what they're created to do. Trees are created so their branches and their leaves will touch the sun or aim at the sun or aim at light. However, the environment is what shaped them. And so just giving that backstory and helping people understand that, I'm a really big advocate for looking at education systems that we do wrong. I'm really big advocate for not cramping the style of allowing someone to express their creativity, that all things are one way. No, they're not. Everyone's created so individually. And that's been a part of my journey. And I believe that I've been on that journey. So I also echo this and help people find, do what they don't believe they can, and that's the big thing. So my journey, I grew up in church. I grew up with ministers as parents, very high profile in Australia, and had a big influence all over the world. And as we understand, the Pentecostal movement or any religious movements, they have, and I'm very cautious here because I'm a big endorser of church. I'm a massive endorser of religion. It's my life. However, there's two things in that those organisations, and they can be in any organisation or any ism or any religion
Anywhere
or
there's
any
people,
belief.
you're going to have issues.
That's right. So it's conformity versus transformity. And so when someone comes along and we have a set way, this is the way that we know that they're going to turn out how we want them, then that's conformity. And so in all those areas, I grew up under conformity, and I know that there was certain things that happened at a particular time where my father, I remember at one stage on a Sunday, the church was big in Townsville. There was probably, I don't know, 600-700 people in attendance. And I was sitting chatting to my mates, and my dad and three of his ushers came down from the pulpit because I was chatting during the service, and in front of the whole church dressed me down. And all the listeners might be going, "Oh, that is just the worst thing that a father could ever do." Da da da. Yeah, he was not perfect, and that's okay. Him and I. He's not in this world at the moment anymore. He's passed on to a better life, should we say, or a better place. But him and I, we well and truly mended fences before he departed, and he's a great hero of mine. So I want to give that aspect as well. Kids, that's a perspective thing too. It may not have happened that way, but that was my perspective. The truth is that I was really hurting because my father was too busy building a church rather than building a family. And I was missing my dad. So any little thing that happened like that, then all of a sudden attached itself to me needing approval or needing attention or telling me I wasn't good enough. So my identity slowly started to shift, and I had to start performing for the identity to get the attention and love, nurture and meaning and belonging that I really wanted. So that's a really important aspect to understand, is if we can give kids, like, resilience is built by a nurturing person, mentor, father figure, mother figure, but someone who can nurture that child. That's how resilience is actually built. That's a Harvard study done.
Can I
So
just come in
if we
there?
can understand,
Can I just come in there and just say one thing, that your dad obviously was incredibly successful at what he did. He was very focused, very successful, very driven, and made things happen. And that can be in anything. It can be in building a business. It can be in a career.
being a lawyer,
It can be in your sport. It could be in a lawyer. It could be in any aspect of life where you're putting all that effort, but the other avenue that you're talking about, family, etc., is missing out on that. And that might be something that either we are doing ourselves right now that we need to look at, or something that has happened to us as kids, as similar to what has happened to you as well. So I just want to bring that in, so to help people, I guess, get a grasp of it can be anybody in any sphere of life and
That's
whatever
right.
they're doing. Yeah.
This was just mine. This is the way. This is where I grew up. So this is only the only story I have.
Yeah.
And so, going on with life, I then became addicted to approval, needed to get the attention and the love that I was missing. And so, because three of the basic human needs are love, connection, and belonging, well, I think they're the three at the lowest point. Maslow's got a hierarchy of needs. There's all these other people with different theories of needs. Jordan Peterson talks about it as well. But understanding that there's actually the three most important ones are connection, love, and belonging. And where those are missing, then we will just about give up our virtue to get them. I know that I went against all my morals. I broke every characteristic, every bit of integrity in my life, because I didn't feel like I belonged. I didn't feel like I was loved, and I didn't have a connection. And one of my dad's greatest statements is, he would say this to the church in the local area, but also on the global space and on the stage that he was globally. He would say this: I would say to my kids, my door is always open to my children. And my immediate thought, the minute I heard him say that, every time he said it, was, yeah, that's true, but he say, my office door is always open to my children. I'd say, yeah, that's true, but your office is at the church and you're always in your office. And so the connection for me broke. And I remember years later, my mum asked me, "Where did you go wrong?" And my dad turned to her and said, "Are you stupid, Murray? We did that to him." And thinking that I was some sort of black sheep, but I allowed shame into my life by the actions I was doing because I gave up my virtues, I gave up my values, I gave up my integrity because I was so desiring to belong and to fit. And that is what killed my identity. Rather than nurturing my identity, it killed my identity. And
So,
then
so you saying that to get that attention, belonging, love, etc., you you literally went against everything that you really knew in your heart and your mind to be true.
values, beliefs,
Yeah.
and I believe a lot of people do it. I believe, look, I look at my own kids and where I failed and go, I know that that's what they've done. That everyone wants to belong. So if you look at I listened to a great podcast with uh, what's her name, Dear Khan. Dear Khan. She's a journalist. She infiltrated the white supremacist movement in America, and she did a documentary about them. And one of the things that they do was they make their new inductees or their new people that come in, the patches or whatever they want to call them, they make them feel like they belong. So you think about it. Well, a kid is a kid. He's never got a motive to do the wrong thing. We're not programmed to do that. We're not programmed to do the wrong thing. We're actually shaped to. So, but if you don't find a place where you belong, hey, come and be a part of this biker gang or come and be a part of this group. And all of a sudden, through association, you're doing all the things that you weren't actually designed to, that you're programmed to. And so I believe that's a lot of the reason why identity gets lost. And mine did, mate. Mine did. I gave up my virginity when I was, I think, 15, and that, as much as a rite of passage in Australia is for a boy is to go out, get on the piss with his mates, lose his virginity, and get in a fight, and all of a sudden you're a man. There's nothing. That's nothing like the truth. So I gave up my virginity. I got stuck in a porn, all sorts of stuff, and it actually started layering up the shame in my life until it was so toxic that I completely didn't know who I was. And that went a long way into my marriage. I was married, 4 kids, and still going, who the am I? What am I? And realizing that, that's why I say I had to go on that journey back into myself to find out who I really was. What are those 400 psychological traits that actually really do land and make you the creative person you're supposed to be? And so there was a lot of places where I tried to find belonging for, but I was so lost, so addicted to approval, so needed attention. And all those things are symptoms of a greater cause. And that cause was I didn't feel like I belonged. And so when I started that journey, it was all about me belonging to me, not me belonging to a parent. It was all about me getting the validation inside me. And I know in the Christian world, people say you don't get validation from your inside. You've got to get it from God. You've got to deny yourself. Well, there's a dichotomy in that,
Yeah.
right? A real dichotomy in that, a real one that people don't understand. When Jesus said, if you want to follow me, deny yourself, take up your cross daily and follow me. And there's a dichotomy in that because what he's saying is don't answer your ego and your selfish desires. Answer to the person that I created you to be. That's that one inside. And so, and that's I guess the paradox in all that is like denying oneself is denying your selfish desires and ambitions and motives to actually come back to who you really are, who you're designed to be. And that, like I said, come back to those 400 characteristics, those 400 things, that beautiful created person. Like I can sit in front of a mirror or in front of anyone and say, you know what, that Nathe Cartledge, I love him. He's awesome. So that's the lost identity. It happened through a long process of my parents being way too busy with other things and not knowing how to nurture family. And the one of the greatest little quotes I've heard recently, and I love this, because even though I've screwed up as a parent with my children, it's cycled its way back around for me, which I'm so grateful and so humbled by. But true success is having your adult kids want to hang out with you.
Mm.
And so for me, that didn't really happen in my family, and we're quite dysfunctional. As much as we all love each other, there's still a dysfunction in my family. But with my immediate family, my wife and my 4 children and their partners and our grandchild, they all want to be with me. And
Mm.
I think, okay, what did I do there? So I think the journey of identity, the journey of purpose has actually done that, has made me realize it's not about what I achieve externally, or it's more about me knowing who I truly am, understanding my identity, understanding my purpose, understanding my mission. And all of a sudden, you become a light that people want to come to you. Things come to you. So you become very attractive. And that's what has happened.
Is there anything specifically that helped you, that you did, that helped you rediscover your identity? You've given us a good overall view of what has to happen, but were there specific steps that you took or people can take to actually do that?
The very first, most important thing is take radical responsibility for your life. We talk about self-awareness or awareness, and I think there's a difference between being self-aware or aware and taking responsibility for your life, because you can be self-aware and you can go, I'm aware of that about myself, but without taking responsibility and ownership for it.
Mm.
I think Iggy McGowan said that recently on my podcast, that taking ownership of those things, like at the end of the day, it was my perspective as a kid, what happened to me. It was my perspective.
Mm.
And so those things that I thought happened to me really happened for me.
Yeah.
And that's when the shift happens, is when I've taken ownership of the shit. And I know it's a easy thing to take ownership of it and go, okay, I don't want to own it anymore. I
Mm.
don't want to own that ugliness. I don't really. I've got to own it. It's mine. It was happened. It's happened
Mm.
for me. I'm very aware of myself. I'm self-aware, but I don't want to own that. That's ugly. So then you actually do the work to shift on. But that's
And the
number
funny
one, is
thing, sorry, I just on that is, and I think one of the things that makes it hard for people to do that is it hurts to do that. It really does hurt, and it feels, I guess, there's embarrassment and shame in doing it. But once you do actually get there, the freedom that you get out of that is
yeah,
unbelievable. Like the
yeah,
freedom
yeah.
that comes with that is just that in itself, let alone anything else, is worth it.
Oh, yeah. The absolutely the humiliation that brings, the real humiliation that brings suffering, or the real suffering that brings humiliation, is so freeing.
Mm.
It is so freeing just to be able to go, I don't have the answers. I'm not good enough, but that's good enough. I'm
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah. So it starts there, Kingsley. It starts with taking real responsibility and ownership for the stuff in your life that's been either happened to you, and you turn that into a happen for you.
yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think if people can just go and hear those last 5 or 10 minutes again and start to apply that, that in itself will make the world of difference, because we all have
Yeah.
those issues to deal with or have dealt with, or no, let's go. We all have those issues to deal with because none of us are there yet. We've still got other work to be doing. So if you're listening or watching this and you think, I don't want to go there, we all have issues to deal with still. We will never be a completed, perfect human on this planet. It's that simple.
No,
But it's
no.
just an ongoing process. But as we do that, freedom is incredible. I
Yeah.
want to ask you now, because obviously you've got a number of businesses, you're very successful, you're a coach, you're happily married for 30 plus years, you've got a great family, kids, and I think there's one grandchild at this stage. Is that right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Out of everything you've done and the journey you've been on, what are you most proud of?
Oh, my children. Much, I don't even have to think about that.
And why is that?
I think there's two. I think the most proud of is I've been married for, I'm going to get in trouble here, 30. I've been married for 31 years, 32 years, something like that. I can't remember. I do.
It was
I'll
31 or
probably get in
32
trouble.
years ago, mate. That's fine. So.
I'm most proud of the fact that we are still together. And I don't say that in a way for other people, because I know your circumstances. Other people haven't made it to that point, because there's all sorts of reasons why people have to get out of relationships, and it's really important that we know what stage we're at. But for me personally, I'm proud of that I've been able to get through my stuff and maintain and love my wife the way she needs to be.
That's awesome.
I'm exceptionally proud of my children, and it's not because of anything I've done, because I had a hand in creating them, but it was only a hand, and it was a few enjoyable seconds, and that was pretty well it. Everyone can say, "Oh, we made love." Well, you know what? For men, it was a few enjoyable seconds, and you created humans. So that's the truth. Yeah, I am most proud of them because they are who they are. We have a little saying in our family, and it goes like this. It goes, "Be who you are when you're there." And that's we both, my wife and I, weren't given the opportunity to do that as we grew up, because we both grew up with very over authoritarian parents that tried to make us toe the line with the way they saw things in the world. So, and again, that happened. We take responsibility for that ourselves, and we've made the decisions to actually grow from that point. Because of that, we went, okay, what do we want our family to be like? We want them to be free. We want them to be creative. We want them to be the people they were designed to be. So let's create that. Let's create that, whether it's accidentally or on purpose, but let's create it. So be who you are when you're there. And that doesn't mean, it means, and yeah, we can go on and design the life that we want. And that's the person we want to be out here, and then be that person now. But a lot of the time, being present, and this is who I really am, it can be very confronting for people, because my children are my children. And whether they say the wrong thing, act the wrong way, whatever they do, this is one thing I know about my children, is they're extremely loyal. They are extremely fun, and they know how to love unconditionally. There's no condition about their love for each other and for Manda and I. And so I am out of, like, we're just about to take up an opportunity, or we're working on an opportunity that could see everything that I've done in my life, business-wise, culminate into one thing that would just, it's mind-blowing, the opportunity. It's like, really is. And I can't give it up at this stage. But I look at it and go, well, there's the design that I was designed for. All the things that I've done have pointed me to this thing. But even if that all came off, and even if in the smallest aspect it came off, it would be hugely financially successful for us. But still, it wouldn't. And I can say this confidently, that once upon a time before, that's what meant to me. Everything meant to me. I would be significant. I would have financial wealth. I would be, seen and approved of. But now I really, that may happen. And even if it does, the most successful thing that I've done is curate 4 beautiful humans. And that's the deal for me. My ability just to be able to understand and listen, and it's just been a very humbling experience for God to go, slap, listen to them, and me go, oh yeah, right, that's the deal. So I'm very honoured and very grateful for the 5 exceptional humans that He put directly into my life, the 3 other so far, and hoping for the 4th little partner to come along, and then the 1 grandchild so far, and hopefully we're getting another one next year. Not to mention all the dogs. And there is 1 cat that we don't like to talk about. But
well, you just did.
Yeah, I know.
At least you mentioned the cat. So wherever people are at least you mentioned it. So that's
Yeah, yeah.
good. You're on the good side. I've
Everyone
got
will
a
laugh about it.
couple of more questions because our time's pretty much up. But that's what you're most proud of. And some people do put their identity into their business or their career or to different things like this, and then stuff goes wrong.
Can I just jump in for a second,
Yeah, yeah,
Kingsley? Can I
yeah.
just jump? I do need to say this. I'm also very, very proud of myself. Like,
Mm,
what are the things that, like, I'm proud. Could get emotional with this one. I'm proud that I did this. I'm proud that I've made it to this point. I'm proud that I've gone down into that dark cave, and I see a counsellor. I was seeing a counsellor once a week. Now I see her once a month, but it's proactive. I endorse that. Endorse
mm.
it hugely. See people, find someone, get a coach. Everyone should have a coach and a counsellor. So I'm proud of myself. Like, yeah, I'm proud of my children. I'm proud of all that, but I'm really proud of myself, Kingsley. I'm proud of the fact that I've I've suffered. That's not over. It never will be. But I've found the joy in suffering, and I'm proud of myself for what I've become and who I am also becoming. Sorry to I just
No, that's brilliant. I'm really glad you said that because there's this big thing about ego, um, and people have a negative attachment to ego. I think we are born, particularly as males, with egos, and I think they're a good thing. But when we have lost our identity, or where we are trying to make up for something, that's where our ego is not something that is actually an ego. It's something that we're actually trying to prove ourselves and trying to be something. So we're acting like we are all this big, high and mighty, where we're not. Whereas ego is, to me, the real good ego is something where I am proud of me. I am proud of what I've done. I am proud of where I've been, what I've achieved, but in a good, humble way, just like you talked about.
yeah.
And I think we get it so wrong sometimes. So I'm
Yeah,
really glad that you said that.
I totally agree with you, because the ego, if you want to look at the ego like this, you can be egocentric, which is you're all about you, which is basically narcissistic,
Mm-hmm.
or you can use the ego as a device to protect you and to give you the wisdom that you need to see things that you may not see.
Mm.
And so quite often we'll find that our ego is the thing that's trying to protect us. You know, it's the thing that it's there saying all this stuff to us, and if we pare it back and go, "Oh, thank you, ego, but I'm not going to operate out of that right now." The ego is there, and if it's without any sort of foundation of identity, like you said, without any good foundation of moral and of integrity, the ego will float off into the atmosphere and think it's all this. But when it's grounded with the right morals and integrity and identity and the characters and the values that we need, then it's a device that helps us in times where it's for security, it's for safety. You're not that good. You won't do that. Well, thank you, but I am that good and I will do that. It's there for safety and security. It's helps us think about things. So that's the way I see ego now.
Yeah, 100%. We need it, and it's a good thing, so long
Oh
as
yeah.
we are good in ourselves.
Yeah. Just like we need doubt.
Yeah.
People go, "Oh, I grew up with all doubts from the devil." Well, no, that's rubbish. Doubt's good. Doubt means that if you're doubting about something right now, you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable position. That is where you want to be. Because you know what? Status quo is your biggest enemy.
Yeah. 100%.
Oh,
100%. So you've almost sort of answered, I think, a little bit of that question, but and maybe you have. But the question, I got two more questions to go. Basically, people who have built their career, their business, their maybe their sporting career, or whatever it is that they've built, and they lose it. It's gone for whatever reason, and it happens to people all the time. What would your advice to them to be when they're in this place of, I was all this and now I've lost everything? They
mm,
lose their identity because quite often their identity is who that person was
yeah.
or what they had built for themselves.
Yeah. There's lots in this. I'm a big fan of Peter Crone, who I could talk for hours on this, really, because we put our identity into people groups. I am this or I am that. When we say I am, that means we align. I'm a failure. You're putting yourself in alignment with a failure. I am a smoker. You smoke cigarettes. You're actually identifying as that person. I am useless. I am like even all the people groups that are being created now in the LGBTQ community. Like that's a community of a people group that's being created. Whereas I like to see it as no, I'm a human first. I'm Nathan before I was a Cartledge. So my identity isn't even my surname. My identity is that. So I remember listening to Benji Marshall, and in Australia we know Benji Marshall was a great rugby league player. He had a real identity problem when he finished football. He realised his whole football career was wrapped around his whole identity was wrapped around his football career and the successes that he had. And when he came out of football, he was really lost. He didn't know who he was. And he actually articulated this on the Apprentice, the show that's on one of the television stations. But it's a really good thing that he articulated about his identity, realizing that he'd put all of his identity on what he could become externally. And so where it needs to start is right where I started, right at the very beginning. Who are you before you were a surname? Who are you before you were, and dare I say it, any colour or race? Who are you before you were an Australian or an American? Who are you? Because that's not your identity.
Yeah.
People have these things, and I don't mean to just pick out the LGBTQ community. There's lots of them. There's so many. There's all these people groups that people want to attach because they want to belong.
Yeah.
Kingsley, that's that basic human need: connection, love, and belonging. They want to belong. So then they belong to something and they change their identity to suit that. So they belong to the NRL, they belong to the AFL, they belong to golf, they belong to tennis, they belong to the law society, they belong to the real estate community. They're a real estate agent. They say, I am a real estate agent. No, you're not. That's your doing. That's your doing. But what's your being? Your being is, who is Kingsley before you were Kingsley Collie? That's your being. Yeah. And so our identity is in our being, which is in our heart, which is right there. So you can't, and I understand it. Lots of sporting heroes, there's lots of stories about them getting so lost. And I'm a big fan of Danny Crawley, who was a great AFL player, played for St Kilda, and he took his own life quite a few years ago, and they've built a foundation around all this sort of stuff. And he was so vivacious and so fun and so articulate with the football community, AFL community. And he took his own life. And I thought immediately his whole life was wrapped around his ability to perform on the field. He never truly got to know who he really was. And so I would say to anyone, no matter what you're achieving, know thyself first. The created being is so beautiful, a person that you are designed to be, and you'll find absolute abundance in that place. And so don't put your identity in what, and it's so, we hear it so often, people say, don't wrap your identity around that success. But you know what? I would say it's hard. That's a hard one because that's what the world's showing us we should be. And we have got to go against the flow. We've got to run against the tide and say, well, I've got to find myself, go back to nature, do the opposites, do all the opposites, make it opposite day or something like that. So, yeah.
No, that's good, mate. That's good. And it's so, so true. Last question as we're wrapping up here. We talk a lot about the ultimate tomorrow here and creating the ultimate tomorrow. That's what today is all about. What is the ultimate tomorrow?
For Nathan?
For Nathan.
Oh, I'm living it today.
Awesome.
I'm living my ultimate tomorrow today.
So what does that mean? What are you living? How are you
making sure that I love the people in my world that I'm that I'm meant to love. Actually, no, that's wrong. Making sure that I love everyone, because that's important for me.
Mm.
Compassion, love, empathy. We've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use the greater tool, 2 ears. Um, yes, success in business, that is definitely an ultimate tomorrow. Seeing my grandchildren grow and my children grow in the ways that they're designed to.
Mm.
Um, being effective. I think, to answer it in one term, like I can say, yeah, I want business success, I want family success, I want this my ultimate tomorrow. But this is how I would answer it in one thing: that my light would shine brighter tomorrow than it does today.
Mm. Awesome. And just to follow up on that one, what do you do daily? What habits do you have, or things that you do on a daily basis that makes you live or helps you live your ultimate tomorrow?
I think I said this at the beginning. It's how I go to sleep, and that's a that's a lot of work. I'm actually working on some more stuff in that now. How I go to sleep, rather than watching a screen, read something. Even if it's just for a couple of minutes, read something, because what goes in our brains when we sleep is how we'll sleep. So how I sleep, how I wake up, being grateful. I then spend between half an hour to an hour in prayer, meditation. I journal. I read. I then do a couple of small chores in the house before I get into my gym, and I'll work out. Whether that's a half an hour hit or it's just some resistance training. It all depends on my fasting regime, where I'm at with my fasting regime. After I finish my training, I then get on my moped, no matter how cold it is in winter, and I'll go to our good friends out at P3, and I get in the sauna straight away. Spend 30 minutes of sauna, straight in the ice bath, relax a little bit in the warm one, and then go home. I eat, and I just, at that point, I might have a look at my calendar. I might have a little play on my socials, see what's happening there, have a look at my emails before I head to work. That's how I frame my whole morning. Uh, Now, that's taken a lot of years to have as an automatic thing, because it takes longer than you think to create habits. It's not the whole theory of 32 days to create it. It's not. That's rubbish. It's longer.
It's
Some say
different. Every habit's different for every
yeah,
person.
every person. So some people believe it's over 100 days. So I don't know. It's just taken me a long time to make sure that is a non-negotiable, and then be malleable with it as well. Like yesterday, I had to go to Melbourne yesterday, so I had to be at the airport at 5 a.m. So I missed some of those things, but then it's not hanging myself if I don't. And I love what James Clear says
Part of
about it.
life.
Yeah, James Clear says, miss one day, just don't miss two.
Mm.
And so they're the habits. And then during the day, I try and random act of kindness, a few things like that, like shouting someone a coffee or whatever it is. So those things always keep me, like having meetings with people like this. This will be energy up for me. This will a lot of dopamine. I've had a great time here talking to you, and I love what you're doing, Kingsley. I love the ultimate tomorrow today. I live that ultimate tomorrow today. I love the theory behind it. I think everyone needs to get a part of this. So I'll be energy up after this. So
Good stuff. Nathan, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And I know it's been a little while us getting here to actually make this happen. But it's so good. And I'm glad we were actually able to go to a different level to where we quite often get to on this podcast. Sometimes we do go down here in various ways, but we've hit it in a totally different avenue and area, particularly with identity and purpose and things like that. And I really hope people will take this and start doing things. And people who do want to make changes in their life, if they want to contact you and get more from some of your coaching or anything like that, what's the best way people can get in touch with you?
I think probably the best way people can get in touch with me is through my Instagram handle, which is at Nate Cartledge. Just DM. me, I'll find it somewhere. Other than that, I am on LinkedIn, I am on Facebook, but that's probably the most prevalent one for me. That's the platform that I use the most.
Yep.
I'm sure Kingsley will put some other details in the show notes.
Yep.
But even if, like, I'll put it this way, I'm an open book. I'm willing to help anybody. Like, I don't care about whether or not there's anything in it for me or anything further. If you need help or you've lost your identity or you're struggling in this aspect, I'm happy to take a 15-minute phone call or buy you a coffee. So because no one deserves to be so stuck that they can't find their way out. Because I know the end to that one, and the end's not good. I've seen the end, and I've been close to it, and so have you, Kingsley, and we both talked about that. There is a better way. The light at the end of the tunnel is not necessarily another train coming the other way.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's why you're here. That's why I've invited you on here. Nathan, thank you so much. I know it's been a little bit of a longer podcast today, but that's cool because I know people are going to get so much out of it. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day.
No worries, Kingsley. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. And have a great day, everybody.
Remember, create the life that you want.
Amen.